we're going to go ahead and take this idea and translate it to an actual image that has some of these bumps up and down. It also has some of these lines here to kind of give you clues about where you want your highlights and your shadows. Now there's two different ways of sort of looking at this. The first way is seeing these areas that are bumped down as being the highlights. And in that case, what I did is took my pencil and I drew in those shadowed areas and just sort of brought those up from those areas and then from the top down. And then when I start coloring this in, this is going to be my darkest color. And then I'm just going to be flicking back and forth towards those light sources from each of these and sort of building them out. Okay? And in the end, by doing it that way, you're going to get something like this, where the center of this is the darkest, okay? And then where it comes down, that's going to be the lightest. Okay? So that's one option of doing this. Another option, if you want to kind of go the opposite way, you can take these scallops, and where the scallop meets, you can have that be the shadow. And so I like to just take a pencil on a stamped image and kind of show where those are going to be. Okay, so I kind of just squiggle those in just to kind of give my eye an idea of where these are going to be. And now, of course, these folds come down. These folds kind of come across. So that's the idea on that one. And if we do it that way, this is the look that we're going to get. So you can see that by deciding, or depending on where you decide where you want your fabric folds and pleats, you get a completely different look. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and show you this one. I'll do a quick demonstration of this. Okay? So I've got those in there. I can go over this with my pencil, but remember, if you go over pencil with Copic markers, the pencil stays. You cannot erase it. So I'm going to go ahead and erase that, get that out of the way, and we'll go ahead and begin coloring. Okay? So the first step I like to do is right where I had those pencil marks, I'm coming in with my darkest marker and I'm zigzagging up. And again, this is just the drafting stage, so I'm not really particular. It's not very neat. We're going to bring those lines straight down. You'll see this is where they start to meet, and actually this one over here probably meets up with that one. This meets up with this one. Now this, there's actually one over here that would meet up with this, and then so these two, since there's not one here, I actually kind of have these meeting themselves. Okay, so that's where my dark areas are going to be. Also over on the side here, I've got a couple of dark areas there. Okay, so that's how I begin. And then just expand and flick towards the light from those areas. Okay, so my medium color, I'm expanding and flicking on both sides, kind of flicking out towards the light. I'm making sure that I don't go into those highlighted areas. I want to keep those nice and bright, nice and white. Okay, so remember, this is a time-consuming process. It's not just a once quick throw the color down and be done with it. It's a back and forth kind of working it thing. So you can work it. And I have found that actually going out and observing, looking at the way fabric actually folds, has been extremely helpful for me for this. Okay, so that was my medium. Now I'm coming in with my light, kind of just smoothing out some of those edges a little bit. Keeping those areas that I want highlighted, keeping those white. because we'll come back in at the end. Because if I cover them up now, what tends to happen is towards the end, they've got so many layers of that light ink on them that they're no longer nice and light. We kind of lose those highlighted areas. So I'm going to darken everything back up. I'm coming in with my dark, kind of expanding these. Kind of keep moving that around so I've got the best angle for myself here. Okay. And I'm just trying to follow what the stamp has given me as far as clues. So each stamp image is going to be different, and you can actually color them in different ways. You saw this one image, actually I had two different dress patterns for her, and both of them are correct. It just depends on how I want to see it, how I want it to look. Okay. So adding in my dark shadowed colors. Now you'll notice my dark area got really big, and that's because I like lots of contrast. I like my images to be fairly dark, so that's me. If you like lighter, keep it lighter. Keep that dark area a little bit smaller. That's fine. Okay. But you can already see that it's really starting to come together already. Okay. So now I'm coming in with my medium, expanding each of those areas, blending the medium into the dark, making sure that I keep those white highlights. Right? And same as before, eventually those top areas and some of these, probably not the bottom areas as much, but the top areas, especially because the dress is so much more narrow at the top, those areas are going to start coming together and start meeting. And that's okay. That's what you want to happen. Okay. So again, medium, kind of blending those in, and coming in with my light and doing the same thing, back and forth, back and forth. This is not one of those you've just got a few minutes to work kind of projects. This is one of those that does take some time, but trust me, it is so much worth the effort. The results are just really cool when you can have your flat stamped images all of a sudden kind of come to life. And it's really starting to really give you an idea of some fabric there. So I'm going to probably do just one more time here, dark to light. And so I'm adding my darkest again, really darkening up those areas. And this is where having a really good paper is really important, because you're putting lots and lots of ink on here. As you can see through the back, I'm actually using the Express It brand blending card. And I'm using a lot of ink, but it's not coming through a whole lot. I'm actually a very light-handed inker. So just to kind of give you an idea, but you will use a lot of ink because you're going back and forth and you're really adding lots and lots of layers, especially of that dark ink. Okay. And so by doing this, I have identified all of my areas that have, I'm going to come up just a little bit more on that one. All of my areas that have those highlights, those are identified. All of my areas that have the fabric folds, those are identified. Okay. And probably one last time here with the medium, back and forth, back and forth. Keeping those highlighted areas light, but not going too far into my shaded areas with my medium because I don't want to pick up too much of that dark color. I want to leave it really dark. That's a personal preference. I like having a dark blue dress here. I tend to probably color a little bit darker than most people. Okay. And back with my light. And I'm not yet ready to cover up those white highlights yet. I'm just sort of smoothing out those edges. Kind of closing up some of those gaps. And then I think I'm ready. I think it's to a point where I'm ready. Over here it needs a little work. I've got to close that up a little bit. There we go. Probably even a little bit further down there. Okay. And then when I'm ready, I'm going to take my light and I'm going to just go right into those highlighted areas and give them a once over. Really just softening that up, getting those final edges to blend. So remember, it's a blue dress. Your highlights are not going to be white. Okay. So there's the skirt of the dress. I'm going to do the same thing to the sleeves. And when she's done, we've got a completely colored Tilda with lots of fabric folds. Thank you so much for stopping in today. I hope you learned a lot from the tutorial and hope to see you next time. Bye.